And Morales plays it forward for Bergqvist. Kitchener changing again. It's stolen by Tomasino. Tomasino coming in. Latvia scores! We've been waiting for some of these rookies to break out and finally put something crooked in the score sheet. And Ethan Sims, and boy, what a way to get your first goal. Theriault, nice move by Theriault. Theriault looking for a lane, switches to the forehand, goes to Jackson Doherty. Out front, they score! It's the first career OHL goal for Ethan Sims, and wasn't it a beauty to open the scoring? They're thinking offense. Butler, drag move, score! Welcome to Niagara! Cameron Butler, his first goal as an Ice Dog. Well, they rolled out the welcome mat for me here in Sarnia with a 7-round shootout. Ivan Latvia, and Latvia surveys his options. Nice move by Latvia. Look at Latvia go. Slides it down low, they score! Overagers combine. Here's Elijah Roberts. And who wants to walk with Elijah? Here comes Forster. He's in with Brown. Forster across for Brown. Oh my goodness, what a wonderful save by Christian Spralia. Last 10 seconds of overtime. One more rush for Niagara. It's going to be a breakaway for Latvia. 3 seconds, 2 seconds. Latvia scores! Latvia scores with 1.1 second to go in 3-on-3 overtime. What a finish at the Meridian Center as the Ice Dogs celebrate like they won a playoff round. Boy, did they deserve it.
Joined by a guy who's been on the airwaves and your television screens broadcasting various sports for quite some time now. Steve Clark is the very distinctive voice of the Niagara IceDogs on your TV. He knows how to paint a picture with his words, and he's also a high school law and history teacher. Steve, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Josh. Very kind of you to say some of those things.
You've been calling IceDogs games since their advent in Niagara back in 2007. Started things out at the Jack, have moved over to the Meridian Center, and you've been part of a pair of Eastern Conference championships and trips to the OHL Championship Series. I'm sure you've got some fond memories of your time behind the mic in the league, doing games with guys like Ed Burkholder and Al Galloway.
Yeah, I mean, boy, we've been one of the crews that's been together, I think, for amongst the longest in the OHL for at least the TV side of things too. I mean, we met back in 2007. Al had come from, he was working Mississauga IceDogs games. I had come from calling, Tier 2 Junior A, Newmarket Hurricanes, Markham games, things like that. A couple fill-in dates with Oshawa, and Ed had really his TV experience came from being on Off the Record a lot with Michael Landsberg, and for whatever reason, something just clicked that first year, and I think we've made a pretty good team, and more importantly, we've all become pretty good friends as well. And when you're working with your friends, it's and you're at a hockey arena, it's more fun than anything.
Yeah, as you mentioned, definitely one of the league's longest standing television broadcast teams. So always fun to tune in and watch the IceDogs on your TV. Of course, the IceDogs had made the playoffs 12 consecutive years in a row up until this one. I'm sure I'll have a good laugh with Joey Burke when I chat with him again ahead of the season, because technically the streak is still alive. I mean, we didn't have playoffs last season. So, things were kind of going in the wrong direction there towards the end, but it certainly would have been interesting to see if the Dogs could have pulled things together and snuck in there in the final weeks of the season.
I'm going to go on the record, and I said this before, I just felt that the IceDogs, even though they were not playing very well at all during that latter stretch of the season, I felt they were going to find a way to sneak into the playoffs and keep that streak going. I don't have any foundation for it. I don't have any basis for it, but I just figured they would find a way to sneak in. And of course, I'm never going to be proven wrong or right because, as you said, there were no playoffs, but it certainly was one of the more interesting years in Niagara IceDogs history for both the right reasons and the wrong reasons. I mean, if you want to talk about a franchise that had to overcome a tumultuous year and a lot of personal tragedy with Tucker Tynan, and then, long losing streaks, and then trading away a bunch of players, it certainly tested their intestinal fortitude, that's for sure.
Being in Niagara since the beginning has given you the chance to watch some great players. the Hamilton brothers, Ryan Strome, fan favorites like Andrew Agozzino, Alex Friesen, Mark Byzantine. As you mentioned, you're close by, being in Waterdown there from where he grew up. And, more recent stars like Akil Thomas, Ben Jones, Carter Verhaeghe. Do you have a favorite Ice Dog from years gone by?
That's a great question. And I do have a couple because I've always been a frustrated goalie. Never got to play goalie, always loved goalies. And my favorite number was 29. I do have a soft spot for Waterdown's Mark Byzantine. And, we were thrilled when he got drafted in the first round by the Coyotes, and then injuries kind of took their toll on him, and he's actually retired now. Loved Andrew Agozzino, Alex Pietrangelo. He was beyond his years. He was a commanding leader. He was fantastic in interviews. He was just an absolute joy to watch. So I rank him slightly ahead of Mark Byzantine, Andrew Agozzino, and Ryan Strome, who I always loved, Ryan Strome and his creativity and what he could do with the puck.
Certainly must have been a thrill for you to watch Alex Pietrangelo and the St. Louis Blues there go all the way to the Stanley Cup final, see him raise the cup. Definitely, one of the steadiest OHL defenders of the last decade, and great to see him go on to big things. Kind of funny how goaltenders like to sit around and talk hockey. I'm a former goaltender myself. Clearly wasn't good enough to play in the OHL, so hey, here we are, you and I, talking hockey in August.
Yeah. My daughter's a goalie. My daughter is at Rep Hockey, so at least I'm able to live vicariously through someone.
Yes, continuing the tradition. The 2012 and 2016 editions of the Niagara IceDogs were both very strong groups. Unfortunately, they ran into the London Knights in the OHL Championship Series, on both occasions. Got to be something special about calling games that deep in the postseason. The intensity just a little bit higher, the atmosphere in the building ratcheted up. And, of course, you're bringing the action to people in their homes, out at restaurants and local establishments. Yes. Probably something that doesn't get old for a broadcaster.
No, it doesn't. And there's a different feeling when you walk into a building. It doesn't matter what building it is, and you're part of a championship broadcast, whether it's the finals, the semifinals. But for the finals, there was just an energy, a buzz, an expectation in the building. And you go back to that 2012 team, and I've always said that 2012 Ice Dog team was the best team in the Ontario Hockey League. The London Knights, I don't think, were quite as talented or at the level of the Ice Dogs, but they were able to win. So that says something. And, that was the year it was in Jack Aycliffe. And so you were in that small building with 3,100 fans, and it was just absolutely electric. Now, if you fast forward to 2016, again, Meridian Center, sellouts every single playoff game. Practically, you get to the final. The Ice Dogs played at home, and they were already down 2-0 in the series. But again, the buzz was palpable. And if you think about, the stars that London had that year, they had Mitch Marner, Christian Dvorak, Matthew Tkachuk, Victor Mete, to go on and on and on. The Ice Dogs had Josh Hosang, Alex Nedeljkovic, all those guys. And it was fantastic. And I remember that game in 2016 well, Josh, because game 3, the Ice Dogs were up on the Knights 4-1 in the first period. London scored at the end of the first period to make it 4-2 and chipped their way back and then won that game in overtime 6-5, pretty well ending any hopes of a Niagara IceDogs comeback. London won game 4, 1-0, and that was all she wrote for the series. But yeah, you're right. To be a part of a couple of championship series like that, even though the IceDogs were unsuccessful, it's something that's very special. And I know that not every single broadcaster gets to do it either. So I treasure those moments, and I really take pride in trying to deliver the best product that I can on those moments.
Yeah, you mentioned the sellout crowd and the environment inside the Meridian Center. One of the best in the league with a full house. Of course, the OHL's history in St. Catharines is quite long-standing. Personally, one of my favorite theme nights across the league is when the Ice Dogs pull out the old TP's uniforms, which they've done a few times over the last couple of years. Just classy-looking threads. I really enjoy them. What can you tell us about St. Catharines and the Niagara region in terms of the following the Ice Dogs get there? Having been to my fair share of games, both at the Jack and the Meridian Center, I get the impression there's a strong base.
There really is. And, when junior hockey returned to Niagara, there were doubts about whether or not it would actually work back in 2007. The Niagara Falls Thunder hadn't had the best experience in the Ontario Hockey League, a solid franchise, no doubt. But what the Burks did when they came in, they marketed it not just as St. Catharines' team, they marketed it as Niagara's team. So they wanted to draw from all regions of Niagara. And they did. And that's what has made the franchise really, really successful. And then it built as you go forward. Jack Gatecliff Arena. They knew they had to get a new building to keep junior hockey viable in the Niagara region. So once they built the Meridian Center, it really commands the downtown. So now you've got restaurants that buzz on game nights. Now you've got the casual fan who fill up the private boxes along with the diehards. And I don't think there's any bigger diehard fans than Niagara fans, Josh. And I'm biased, of course, because I've been with the franchise for 13 years. But I mean, they were still putting 5,000 people in the building and almost selling out the building last year when the team was struggling, and in other years in which they're rebuilding. Niagara now has got that foothold now in which Ice Dog games have become a night out, whether it's for the family, your friends, business associates. They've captured that market and they've really made it a success.
Well, even despite, you mentioned earlier that the 2019-20 season was a trying one for the club, a rebuilding year. Still seemed to be a good show of support out at the rink, even on some of those tough nights. I mean, 18 wins and 320 goals surrendered. Everybody knew it was going to be a rebuilding season. You mentioned the Tucker Tynan injury. I mean, Ivan Lodney didn't join the team till October, and even he was out of the lineup with some injuries there in the second half. I think you'd agree it was a transitional season for the franchise and one that everybody kind of expected.
Yeah, it definitely was. I don't think everybody expected the Ice Dogs to really go sideways the way they did in the second half of the season, where they had a 14-game losing streak, and some of those nights were ugly blowouts. But certainly, like this, the OHL sometimes has this rebuild, go for it, tear it down, rebuild mentality with some of the teams, and that's just the way doing business. The Ice Dogs, I mean, they got Ivan Lodney back. I mean, they could have kept Phil Tomasino. They could have kept Akil Thomas, and they could have probably got in 6th or 7th place in the conference, made the first round, kept their streak going. But then the future, well, that wasn't looking so bright because they had spent a lot of draft picks to get players to go for the run before. So the inevitability of you embrace a guy like Phil Tomasino or Akil Thomas, but inevitability in a year like this year, you have to move on from them and traded them. And they traded those guys, and they got a lot of futures back in young prospects and draft picks. And that's something that bodes well. And that's something you can sell a team on. That's something you can sell a fan base on. We all miss Akil Thomas. We all miss Phil Tomasino. We'll all miss Ivan Lodney now that he's moved on to the professional ranks as an overager. But you sell that hope, and then you can really still engage that fan base. And unfortunately, you got to sacrifice maybe a year to do it, like the Ice Dogs have done, and like other teams have done as well. But if you're able to get those futures and get that buzz back and get back towards the playoffs, the fans will buy in and they'll follow along.
There's certainly lots to look forward to, when the puck drops again. All signs pointing to second overall 2020 OHL Priority Selection Choice, Pano Fimis being a very special player. And as we've seen with some Russians who have come out of the USHL, like Andrei Svechnikov and Igor Afanasyev in recent years, Daniel Gushin sounds like he's going to be an electrifying player in an Ice Dogs jersey.
Yeah, and I think Afanasyev is a great comparison for him because Afanasyev, I believe, played in the USHL too, like Gushin did. And I said, I'm only going on reports and then some scant highlight videos. But yeah, your scouting report is accurate. He's a first liner. He's electric. The fact that the Ice Dogs got him to commit after they picked him 4th overall, I think is huge for the franchise because he was a guy who was drafted 7th last year, I believe, by Saskatoon, and they couldn't lock him up. So he stayed in the USHL. So the fact that the Ice Dogs were able to sell him on the franchise, they'll have him for a couple of years. He'll get drafted by the NHL this year, probably in the 2nd, maybe the 3rd round. And then when you add in, Pano Fimis, who is, by all accounts, that potential franchise-altering center you could really build around, then hey, there's a reason for optimism, in Niagara. There's reason for hope. The record might not be much better next year than it was, the past year, but then you've got the future to sell. And I think that bodes very well. 2 great building blocks for Niagara.
Yeah, building blocks, you mentioned it, and just that forward progression of guys getting reps and having those early young OHL experiences that you learn from, and you get better as a result. So lots to look forward to in Niagara whenever the puck drops again. I mean,
December
certainly,
1st.
yes, December 1st is the target. I mean, and I was just kind of mentioned, I mean, it's going to be a quieter fall for yourself in one respect, but also an interesting one because, as I mentioned off the top, you're a secondary school teacher teaching law and history. And while the OHL is targeting December 1st as a start date, I'm sure you're gearing up for another school year, whatever that's going to look like in light of what's going on in society right now.
Yeah, I think I'll find out when I walk into the building for the first time, whether we have a professional development session or whether it's the first day of school, to figure out exactly what school is going to look like. It's one of the great mysteries, like everything is kind of a mystery. And I'm not really to call it an adventure, so to speak, but yeah, it'll be let's just put it this way. It'll be very, very different in the classroom this year, and it'll be very, very different in the hockey arena this year, no matter, when the puck drops. And as I said, we hope it's that firm December the 1st date that the OHL has set.
Summer's not done yet.
Nope.
Enjoy the rest of it, Steve. Thanks for joining me. Another great chat on this edition of OHL Voices.
Thanks a lot, Josh. Enjoy your summer.